So learning to read music is very similar to learning to read any written language. Firstly, we have to learn what the various symbols represent, and then we have to practice until we can recognize them quickly enough to read aloud. And that's exactly what we have to do here. In each video in this series, I'm going to introduce you to some of the symbols that make up standard Western sheet music, and then I'll give you some exercises and drills for you to do to improve your accuracy and speed at reading those symbols. So let's get started and have a quick look at the staff. I'm sure you've seen one of these before. A staff consists of 5 lines. Each line and space in the staff represents a different letter name. The higher we go in the staff, the higher the pitch will become. Now, of course, there are lots more pitches than there are lines and spaces on the staff. The piano has 88 different pitches that it can play. So we're going to need a way to narrow down which pitches these lines and spaces on this particular staff are going to represent. This is where clefs come in. Clefs quickly tell us whether we're dealing with high pitches or low pitches. To start with, we'll be looking at 2 clefs, the treble clef and the bass clef. We learned in a previous video that this form of music notation was developed to write down vocal melodies. The treble clef was used to write down those notes which were comfortable for the boys of the choir, known as the trebles, to sing. The bass clef was used for those notes that the bass voices, the men of the choir, found it most easy to sing. Almost all instruments use either the treble or the bass clef, or both, to represent all the different pitches they can play. Apologies at this point to viola players, I'm going to make a special video for you. Pianists play from music that looks like this, using one staff with the treble clef to represent the higher notes that are normally played with the right hand, and one staff with a bass clef to represent the lower notes that are normally played with the left hand. Let's dive in and learn to read the notes of the treble clef. Another name for the treble clef is the G clef, and that's because it marks the note G on the staff. You can see it sitting right on top of the second line up. So that helps us out. As we know, this note is a G. Once we know this, we can label all the other lines and spaces on this treble staff. So what's the next note after G? An H, maybe? No, we've learnt already that there are only 7 letter names for notes in Western music. We start at A and go through to G, and then when we get to G, we go back to A again, so that's exactly what we're going to do here. After G, we'll go up through the lines and spaces, labelling A, B, C, D, E, and F, and that takes us up to the top line. And we can also go downwards, labelling F and E. So that's it. We now know what all the lines and spaces on the treble clef mean. But to begin reading music effectively, we need to get to the stage where we can recognise exactly what pitch the note represents without going through sort of careful counting and calculation, just like we have here. I'm going to teach you a really effective way to remember what the lines and spaces on the treble clef stand for. On the treble clef staff, we know that the notes in the spaces, counting from the bottom, go F, A, C, and E. That's really easy for us to remember because it spells the word face. So whenever you think, what's in the space, if it's a treble clef, it's face. To remember the note names that the lines represent, we use a little mnemonic. A mnemonic is something that helps us to remember things. I'm going to teach you the one that was taught to me. Reading from the bottom of the treble clef staff, the lines go E, G, B, D, and F. I remember this as every green bus drives fast. Every green bus drives fast. So if you're looking at a treble clef staff and you're thinking to yourself, what does the third line mean? It's really easy to work it out. We've got our mnemonic, every green bus, and that's how we find it out. So that's it. There's no more to it than that. All we have to do is learn what do the lines stand for and what do the spaces stand for. Just to recap one more time, it's face in the space, going from the bottom of the staff, F, A, C, E, and the lines represent every green bus drives fast, going from the bottom of the staff, E, G, B, D, F. Now obviously when you're playing a piece of music you don't have time to start counting lines and spaces off on your hands just the way that I've shown you. So it's now time to start practicing. You need to get to the stage where you can see the note on a line or a space and instantly say, yes, that's an F, or that's an A. That takes some practice, but I've got some drills and exercises to help you on your way.